Welcome back to the Boot Tragedies.
The state of the organization, firing Dennis, looking for a new coach, is it a rebuild, is it a restructure, just kind of where you all are as an organization right now?
Yeah, I think, look, that's part of what, part of what we haven't done yet is really look back and evaluate where we're at from a personnel standpoint. Obviously, this was a tough season, not what we expected. What jumps out is the amount of injuries, and we've got.
Here we go, blaming injuries. Can't go blaming injuries every time we have a losing season, man. Every team in the NFL has injuries. The Lions are probably the most injury-riddled team in the NFL. They're the number one seed in the NFC. Stop with the injuries nonsense, man. That's just lack of accountability, again, from Mickey Loomis. But let's continue. I'll try not to pause it a lot. It's a long video. We'll try to get through most stuff without pauses unless he just says something outrageous.
But deep dive into that. Are there things that are preventable? Are there things that we missed in the evaluation process, for example?
Yes, the coach.
So all that is work that needs to be done. I'm not a big, I think that you can, rebuild it means different things to different people. I think that you can turn around a season pretty quickly in the NFL. We've seen it with other teams, and
I do agree with that. A lot of people say you want to rebuild, but sometimes a rebuild doesn't mean you're just like about to tank and lose games. Look at the Buffalo Bills. I think they rebuilt that entire team this offseason. They let go Diggs. I honestly think they didn't really care if they were good this year, but when you have a good quarterback, which we don't have in Josh Allen, anything is possible, man. So a rebuild doesn't necessarily mean, hey, I'm going to try to win 2 games this year. Rebuild means you're just changing the direction of your team, and the Saints definitely need that.
There's a lot of good things on our roster, and there's some things that we need to adjust and fill in. Part of that is going to be the viewpoint and the vision that the new head coach has. So there's a lot of questions there I can't answer.
Do you feel like more change?
All right, no, I said I wasn't gonna stop it a lot, but that's the first positive thing I've seen from Mickey Loomis. Now, whether he's full of shit or not, we don't know yet. But the coach should come in and determine some of these things. Hey, I do like this for my team. I do like that for my team. I don't like this. I think we need this. I think we need that. I do like that answer right there.
Change is needed than you even felt though 12 months ago. You kind of had a pretty defiant air last year that things weren't that bad, but then obviously after 5 and 12 seasons, does that change?
Look, I'm positive. I'm glass half.
Let's run that back. I don't know who asking that question, but that's smoke right there. I like him.
Needed than you even felt though 12 months ago. You kind of had a pretty defiant air last year.
Defiant.
Things weren't that bad, but then obviously after 5 and 12 seasons, does that change?
Look, I'm positive.
Hey, y'all, let me know in the comments who asked that question, man. Who asked that question right there?
I'm glass half full at all times. I see a lot of things. Even in a 5 and 12 season, I see a lot of things that were positive that we can build on, and so I'm on the side of, man, this thing can go the other direction pretty quickly.
And so when you say someone will have to do with a head coach, obviously when you're interviewing these candidates, if one candidate was like, I would kind of prefer to catch up on the salary cap for a year and maybe, draft some players and build a nucleus. And another one was like, I'd like to try to win 10 games this year with Derek Carr. Yeah. You're open to both ideas at this point, or that may influence which coach you like.
No, I think that one of the things that's really important is to be able to have a
really
good
good
vision.
Really good question right there. They kind of forcing him to give his thoughts on what the Saints should do. It's like, if you have a coach that wants to win 10, 12 games, do you hire him? Or do you a coach that wants to kind of rebuild and take things slowly? Would you hire him? So you're kind of putting him back against the wall and making him choose on what you would like. Let's see how he answers this question. I'm sure he's going to get away around it.
Organizationally, ownership, GM, coach, coaches, personnel department. We have to have the same collective vision. And we'll get to that.
We'll get to. Didn't answer the question.
All of these candidates
didn't expect
have strengths and weaknesses, and we've got our strengths and weaknesses and blind spots, and so we just have to go through that and figure out, and we will, who the best fit is for us.
Yeah, didn't answer a damn thing.
Dennis Allen said on the podcast that it seemed to indicate that like you weren't in favor of his firing. Speaking to that collective, like
I'm not gonna lie.
Then
I'm gonna fast forward Dennis Allen because
pretty firmly saying behind
don't care.
Dennis last year in January. Do you regret any of those statements?
Like I said, don't care about Dennis Allen right now. It's over with.
Because he thought you were too patient and you thought he wasn't patient enough. After 4 years of not going to the playoffs, are you getting more impatient?
I think I'm still pretty patient. You know, I understand that.
And there lies the problem. And there lies the problem. 4 years without the playoffs and we're still being patient. Patient for fucking what?
Look, the results are the results.
Thank you.
You can't ignore the results, but you
But
also
you do.
have to look beyond the results sometimes and understand.
Look beyond the results for what? You can't come out and say the results are the results, but so, you know what? You gotta look beyond the results. You're acting like we have Patrick Mahomes and he was out for 4 seasons or something like that. No, the results are results because you're putting a bad product on the field with bad players and bad coaching. We don't have to look beyond the results, man. Like, what are we talking about?
The reasons behind the symptoms, and some are in our control, some aren't. And so, look, we have to do the best job we can with the things that are in our control, and we have to understand the things that aren't. And
God, he's awful.
look, I know you guys, nobody wants to hear this, but this injury thing was prevented us from.
Don't care about the
They
injuries.
should have some strengths and weaknesses and blank spots. What stands out as sort of weaknesses and blank spots?
Yeah,
in the current-
I don't think I really want to get into the specifics.
He shouldn't
of that.
answer
I'm just
that.
saying that in
That'll
general,
be crazy to tell your other 31 organizations what your weaknesses and blind spots are. That'll be dumb. Good question though, but he'll be a fool to answer that.
strengths and weaknesses. Less patient, I guess.
You listed everyone.
Your
Proactive. Let me say proactive as opposed to less patient.
You talked about being overwhelmingly positive. There's been a overwhelming negative aura around the season this year, and even towards you. I'm sure you're not, even though you probably don't pay attention to all of it, you obviously see it. Does it affect you, and maybe more on the human side too? I mean, you're ingrained in this community for 2 decades. You have kids that live here and stuff like that. Do you have to help them compartmentalize?
Much, you know, look,
Good question
people
again.
that I run into, fans, etc., they're generally positive with me. So the occasional negative
He's capping.
attitude, that's just part of the job.
He's capping.
That's part of what we sign up for, and
All right, I don't care about this,
but
to be
I
honest.
or that's the disadvantage to having such a passionate. Understand that.
like don't have confidence in your direction. Like why do you think?
I don't.
Why do you think you guys will get this right this time?
Yeah, because we've gotten it right before.
How would you assess?
Huh? Let me get that full question, huh?
Is that when things aren't going well, they're going to be passionate the other direction. I understand.
And the
It's understandable.
fans are frustrated. Like, what would you say to them that like don't have confidence in your direction? Like why do you think?
I don't.
Why do you think you guys will get this right this time?
Yeah, because we've gotten it right before.
When? When? 2009? Bro, that's 16 years ago. That is 16 years ago. What are we talking about here? What are we talking about? 2009? Come on, man. Come on, man. We've gotten it right before. Come on, man. Hey, man. If I didn't messed up for 16 years, not saying he messed up for 16 years because we've had good seasons before. I mean, after that, obviously, the Super Bowl. But you've gotten it right once in 2 decades, and you're going to keep reminding us about that? Hey, bro, eventually, you have to win. I don't care what you did in 2009 anymore. It's over with. You've gotten it right once. You've gotten it right once. We haven't gotten it right again. And blame it on what? Whatever you want. Injuries, rest, coaching, this, that. Unfortunate luck, you've gotten it right one time in 20 years. Once. So don't pretend you just like, you know, the New England Patriots where we've gotten it right every year for the last 2 decades. We haven't.
Grizzlies' job overall in circumstances.
Yeah, I think really tough circumstances. I think he did some really good things and some things that yeah, I think he did a really good job under some really tough circumstances.
You said that
I agree.
take time to evaluate things, but based on his injuries as of the last 2 years, what is your confidence level in Derek Carr right now?
Yeah, I have high level of confidence in Derek. You know, listen, he did some really good things here. He has done some really good things here. I think, I mean, if he had qualified, which I'm not sure if he did, I mean, his quarterback rating would be in the top 10. His interception rating would be in the top 10. His yards per attempt would be in the top 10 under some really tough circumstances when you don't have, you know, your top 2 receivers and you don't have that special weapon in Taysom Hill, and we don't have the middle portion of our offensive line, and we have a rookie left tackle. There's some tough circumstances.
Man,
for
cut it
quarterback
out,
to deal
man.
with. So I think
Cut it
he's
out.
done a lot of really good things.
There are 5 openings right now in the NFL. What do you think makes this job a good job?
Good question. Whoever asked that, good
Yeah,
question.
I think there's a lot, you know, well, first of all, look, we got the best professional sports league in the world, right? And there's 32 jobs, and a lot of guys want to be head coach. So every job is attractive.
Bro, he asked you what's attractive about the Saints. You said it's the NFL. No shit, buddy. No shit.
They just are.
I don't.
There's some that you have extreme familiarity with, there's others that may be unknowns. How do you weigh that in the end? Those that you may feel comfortable with versus those that may be uncomfortable?
Well, I just think there's probably less research you have to do with guys that you're familiar with, right? But that's not, you know, we're gonna select the best candidate, and the advantage you have.
I hope we do.
And Randy and Jeff as part of the process is that, you know, that's a lot of experience in our league, and there's not many guys that they don't have a direct or an indirect take advantage of.
What's your view on just kind of like rebuilding, peeling back a little bit, maybe starting over with a younger quarterback and like going back to the
Good question. I do like this.
You know, building up from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's such a circumstantial thing, right? So, you know, it's not like we have the first pick of the draft. It's you know, we're at 10, I think, as I recall right now. What are we? 9, excuse me. It was 10.
Oh my God. Oh my God. We have a GM of the Saints that don't know what pick in the draft we have. Now, this is small and it doesn't really matter that much, but are you fucking serious right now? You are the GM of the New Orleans Saints and you do not know what pick you have in the NFL draft? You can't be serious, dog. You can't be serious. You just cannot be serious.
And before. You know, that doesn't guarantee anything in the draft, and we haven't gone through the draft process. And so there's just look. I like what Spencer, like a lot of things that Spencer did during the season. I like Jake Hayner. You know, I like Derek. So we've got.
You don't like no damn Jake Hayner. Cut it off.
Things that we're going to evaluate. Things that a new coach is going to have on his plate to evaluate, and then we'll have a collective vision.
The new coach will have like a large say in quarterback direction now, maybe in the personnel and stuff. And in that same vein, the staffing, does the coach have a clean slate to hire whoever he wants?
Yes.
Like, is there anyone here that you're saying has to be part of that?
Nope. No, I believe in the head coach determining his staff, and absolutely.
And I'm blocking any.
Good answer.
Interviews at this point.
Another good question.
Yeah, here's what I've told our staff is that, look, they're all employed. They all have jobs here until a new coach comes in and makes his determination. If they have an opportunity for someplace else, then come see me and we'll discuss it, and we'll grant permission accordingly.
What goes into that decision?
Sorry, go ahead.
What goes into the decision for a guy like Clint Kubiak taking two interviews? It sounds like
Yeah.
with the Browns and the.
Just look, he's got an opportunity like a lot of things that Clint did with us, and
Man, you have to
I
give
don't
these.
want to block someone when I can't guarantee that they'll have an opportunity.
I agree with that, man. You can't just have coaches and hold them hostage for 2 to 3 weeks or 4 weeks. How long this takes. Like, if he has a job opening, he has to go take that job, because a new coach could come in, Aaron Glenn, or get an offensive guy, and he get fired. And then now he has no job, so you can't block those guys. So that's a good thing for Mickey Loomis. I'm not going to try to sit here and kill him, but I do know what pick we have in the draft. It's number 9. We don't have the 10th pick. You should probably know that as a GM.
Eric said recently that he he wouldn't take a pay cut, different approach, but he has a $51 million cap hit. Would you
Yeah.
be comfortable going into the season with him sitting at?
Yeah, I think
51
all that
million?
needs to be, has yet to be determined.
How much progress do you feel like
Good answer.
this offseason when it comes to getting closer to being right with the salary cap following the COVID drop?
Yeah, I've seen that narrative out there. I think
I
there's a
don't
lot to
salary cap. I don't care.
We've got 61 players under contract right now, and there's teams that have cap room, but they've got 38 or 36. So it's a collective.
Yeah, I don't care. Cap. I
A
don't
lot
care
of teams
about.
that have to manage are going best from where we've been, and so I'm feeling better about it.
You've spoken about the passion of the fans and, the connection the city has to the team. How much, not organizationally, just personally for you, is this hire and wanting to get things turned around and back in the right direction?
Yeah.
I don't really care about that question. No offense.
So to think we can do that, I know I can do it. I know we can. It's not a matter of if. It's. I know we can do it.
We've asked you before about, and you kiddingly say you're trying to run us off, run me off. I mean, you considered retirement ever? I mean, is that something ever? What keeps you going then?
Look, I got a passion for. I've got a passion for the sport. I got a passion for the Saints. I got a passion for all of it. I feel like, look, I've got all my faculties here. The only nobody would ask me that question if I wasn't 68, right? They wouldn't ask me the question.
Yes, we would, bro. Because we haven't done shit. We're not asking you the question because you're old. Nobody's asking LeBron James, hey man, you got to retire because you're old. Like, if he wasn't playing well, then that would be the reasoning. Dog, you have not performed. You have not performed. It's not because of your age, bruh. It's not because of your age. We're only asking this retirement question because we're trying to get you out of here before it gets real bad. Like when you're old and washed, which you are, like Pat Riley, they're asking him, is it time to retire? Because they think he's getting old. No, it's because he isn't performing. You are not performing. It's just simple as that, man. You're making me mad. I can't even talk. You know what I mean,
Listen,
though.
you want to go out and challenge me to something? I'm ready to take you on, Jeff. Let's go.
Bro,
Not a
challenge him into creating a team.
fight. I'm not talking about that. I'm never been a great fighter, but if you want to play me golf, you want to play, if I ever felt like my acumen or my ability to think and ability to do the things necessary in this job were waning, I'd be the first guy to say, hey, wait a minute.
He's lying. That's cap.
So no, retirement's not on my mind. Getting back to the playoffs and winning football, that's what's on my mind.
Does this season impact how you? Well, what about just the front office in general though? Like, do you anticipate making any changes there, whether it's scouting or?
Yeah, I think. Well, changes are like what? I mean, personnel changes. I mean, listen, we're always looking at. We've got some ideas about how we can.
Don't care about that.
There's not going to be any changes in that regard. I think they do a fantastic job. So there's not going to be any. I think they do a. Fireland and Michael Parrington.
Thorough evaluation of yes, you might not answer, but what did this season teach you about kind of the roster itself? I know injuries, but is it the types of players being injured? Did you?
Yeah, we haven't done a deep enough dive. It's
Yeah, I'm tired of him saying we haven't done a deep dive yet.
Is this just coincidental enough season? Things you can place. We
Don't
start
care
with
about
growth
injuries,
spurts,
though.
Those are things we have to really look at hard and say, hey, how can we do a better job keeping our guys on the field?
Following up on the front office changes question, will the model be the same? Will a new head coach be a head coach only underneath you, and there wouldn't be any hiring? I think of, because they're a popular topic now, Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes together that work they work for this existing front office, and it's just a coach being hired. Is that the idea?
Yeah. Yes.
You talked about,
And I was going to say, speaking of front office decisions, how alarming is something like Zach Vaughn's season? And I know Trey Hendrickson's also first team All-Pro.
Yeah.
When two things like that happen,
Want to hear this answer?
years, how alarming is it?
I want to hear this answer because I talked about this. Let's see what he got to say.
Well, look, it's not something that you like. That's for sure.
Good start.
But I understand the circumstances behind it. Look, we tried to sign, Zach Bond, but he was looking for, opportunity to get more playing time, and under the last, system, that wasn't going to be as likely. So, look, I'm excited that we drafted.
I agree with that. Like I said, the Zach Bond one didn't hurt me as much. He had a chance to play, didn't play well here. We had Pete Warner, we had DeMario Davis. It was just never gonna work out with him playing more. So he wanted to leave, go somewhere else. Obviously, he's played better than both of our guys, so it is what it is.
Those players, and they've had success. They were identified as talented players, but obviously it's not great when they go and have success someplace else.
It is not.
It hasn't happened a lot in our tenure here, but it does happen, and no different than when we get
Malcolm
somebody
Jenkins,
from another team
Patrick
and
Robertson.
they have success. Sometimes it's circumstantial, but no, when you draft good players, you want to keep them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just a quick joke, you do have the height and reach on Jeff, so I'd probably take you out.
But that's why I picked him out.
You talked about the new head coach's vision. If I could maybe ask specifically, I know last year
I ain't here for the jokes.
you talked about Derek at this press conference finishing the season so strong, and DeMario being an all-pro at like 34,
Yeah.
and Cam being so good. Is your vision that this roster with these
Did he say Cam being so good? Let me run that back real quick. No offense.
players can still be so good, finishing the season so strong, and DeMario being an all-pro at like 34,
Yeah.
and Cam being so good? Is your vision that this roster with these players can still be elite?
Yeah, again, that's part of the evaluation we have to do, that we haven't done yet because we've been involved with going through these candidates. So I can't really answer that yet.
I ain't mad at that.
Last year's press conference was the culture of the team and wanted to kind of correct that.
I don't care about the culture of the team. I want to win
And
games.
so
More of a culture builder.
you just want the best coach possible. And it's like I said, all of these candidates, all of them, they have strengths and weaknesses. Anything into a box and say it's got to be this.
Half of the candidates that have been sort of confirmed so far are offensive coordinators. Is that because that's what the league produces, or you're very interested in exploring the idea of somebody? I mean,
Good question.
that plays and runs their own offense?
Yeah, I mean, half are offensive coordinators, so the other half are defensive coordinators and special teams coordinators, right? So, that's the candidate pool. You're looking at the best coaches available, and obviously they're going to have an expertise on one side of the ball or the other, or a special teams candidate, and so that's the pool.
Outside of maybe the new faces to the interview process, like, what changes, if any, have y'all made to maybe the questions you ask, or how you do the coaching search to ensure that you get the right candidate this time?
Yeah. Well, I just think by having, look, we did it 3 years ago, right? But we hadn't done it for
Did we?
however
Did we, or did we just pick the guy
many years before
that was on the staff already?
that. It was a long time between times, so you learn something from it. I think having some new people, Randy and Dave and Michael Parrington. Well, actually, Michael was involved last time. You learn from the last process, and you get some input on from these other guys. And so,
Well, we didn't even have a process last time, but
it's
all right.
similar.
But all right.
But there's probably a few more items that we're drilling down in that we didn't last time. But I can't tell you specifically. We asked, this particular question or that particular question last time. And
Yeah, I know.
What, do you have a rough time frame within which you would like to have a new coach? And also, do you anticipate training camp being back here?
Good question. I don't think he can really answer that because Aaron Glenn still has to play in the Super Bowl. You don't want to kind of tip your hand, answering that, I would assume.
timetable and time frame is dictated in part and mostly by, the league policies and rules that we have to adhere to, that we are adhering to. And some of these candidates are still involved in playing games, and so
Yep.
that'll dictate the timing.
Makes
I'd
sense.
say it's likely we're gonna have training camp here, but that hasn't been made, that decision hasn't been made yet.
Is that something the new coach would have input into?
Yeah, absolutely. How much does a new head coach change or impact, if at all, what you all do scouting-wise when it comes to the draft and everything, to prototypes, things like that?
Yeah, I think the main thing that you get from, that might be different is, look, we want our coaches to define what they want their players to do at each position. And then it's up to our scouts to go find players that can do those things. The prototypes are the prototypes, that's just based upon what's playing in the league. But I think what's more important is, what do our coaches, what's their vision for what they want a particular player to do, things.
We know that.
Coaching turnover, how much personal pressure do you feel to get this next head coach right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel pressure to do that all the time. I felt pressure last time, so that doesn't change.
Agreed. You should.
We all do. That's
The search ramped up in January after the season, but did you guys use like November, the final few months before the search at all? Like how did that, having that head start time kind of impact?
we look, our focus was on supporting Darren and Rizzy and our coaches.
He's
and
capping, but he should say
finishing out
that.
the season the best way we could.
He's lying. We were looking at coaches as soon as Dennis Allen got fired, but he's supposed to say this, so I'm gonna give him a pass.
We did some in-house research on different people, but I would
Okay.
say most of our energy was spent on supporting our players and our staff that were playing.
I know there's been just some speculation about whether or not the organization would want to just like completely move on from the entire Sean Payton era. Is it?
Good question. I definitely don't even. I'm gonna answer before you answer this one. I hate that concept. I hate that concept because we keep saying that just because Dennis Allen did bad. Dan Campbell's doing great, dude. Like, so Aaron Glenn obviously is doing great. That Detroit Sean Payton crew is doing great. So just because Dennis Allen is doing bad, don't mean we have to move on from the Sean Payton era. Now, obviously, you just don't want to say, hey, if Sean Payton wanted him, then get him. If Sean Payton would have did this, do that. Obviously, you don't want to do that. But look at Dan Campbell in Detroit. Then look at Sean Payton. He's still doing well. So why don't you want to do that? You don't want to do well just because it's tied to Sean Payton? Yeah, I just don't agree with that personally.
Anything the organization prescribes to, like where you just kind of want to.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means because
You went straight from Sean to Dennis, and
Yeah.
and it's been kind of the same sort of staff vision in place for the last 20 years around here. So.
yeah, I don't know that I would agree with that. I mean, I understand the connection between Sean and Dennis,
I can't believe I'm about to agree with Mickey Loomis on something. All right, let's see what he say, though.
but we had a lot of different staff, changes, coaching changes. Look, two of the most successful turnarounds in recent times are Detroit and Denver. Well, both of those staffs are pretty well connected to New Orleans. So,
Yeah, just said
I'm
that.
not sure what the
And I promise I didn't watch this. I mean, that was just obvious. Like, I don't get it, that the fan narrative or whatever
criticism
narrative.
would be about, or understand what the
Like, you got to win. I don't care
those are
who it
successful
is.
programs, right? That had a lot of basis here. So I'm not sure what that means necessarily.
Mickey,
We're going to get the best candidate we can get, whether they have a history with us or not.
What have your
I agree.
conversations with Vincent been like? And how could you speak to where she stands right now in the state of affairs?
Well, I mean, she's like the rest of us, disappointed, frustrated. Wants
Good.
the team to be successful. So she's been nothing but supportive and encouraging and
Good.
able to provide as many resources as we need to get the best coach we can get. So she's a big positive. When the question,
When you look back in hindsight, I mean, do you wish the last time you had a coaching search there was more? I mean,
Yeah.
Maybe
How about the pass? I don't care.
with the roster or with any?
it's just lots of different things really that we could have done better.
Were there some, obviously it seems like there were some learning lessons that you think will maybe help you this time, like going into it, knowing what to look for, knowing the blind spots?
Yeah, there are some things.
He's not gonna answer any of that.
Staffs, but when you talk about a deep dive into the injury issues, when you also own a basketball team that has had the same issues, if not worse.
Yeah.
Do you have to kind of look and see if there's a connection between the two, even though there's different persons?
Good question.
Yeah. I've had a couple conversations with David about, man, let's put our heads together, let's put our groups together, and let's...
Oh, two dummies putting their heads together. Oh, what do you know? What do you know? David Griffin and Mickey Loomis putting their heads together. What can go fucking wrong?
Figure out, is there something in common that we're not doing? David's like, hey, we need to check the water. And he's being facetious there, but I think it's coincidental. But if they can come up with something and we can come up with something, then look, those are areas we got to look at. But I do believe it's coincidental.
I know, obviously, one hire has been made with Newman introducing Mike Brickler today. As dominoes start to fall, would that alter your process and make you change it if you felt like we got to have our guy before somebody else gets him? Or would you say our process is our process and the cards are going to be unfolded the way they unfold?
That's a good question. And
It is.
I would say that,
And I'm not going to answer it.
look, we're gonna follow the process, and I think sometimes if you feel undue pressure, make mistakes. So we're gonna follow our hiring practices.
He's not going to answer that.
Okay.
What do you gain when in-person interviews start to where everything now is just virtual? How does that process differ?
I think it's just detail. We're not asking coaches to study and know our roster inside and out.
That would be
They
idiotic.
got jobs to do.
Yeah.
They're in season. So we're not asking them to do those sorts of things and those kinds of discussions that what we would have in an in-depth, in-person interview. So it's just more detail is really what it comes down to.
Do you expect there to be, or will there be any baseline common attributes in all the candidates?
Well, they'll be good football coaches. That's the baseline.
I would hope.
Sadly, that might have been outside the box. I don't know.
Yeah.
Experience, but, are you open to anything, or do you feel like there's
I think we're open to anything. We've talked a lot about coaches have come from, the offensive coordinator pool, the former head coach pool, the college coach pool. There's these different, buckets, if you will, of rates and.
How much will coaching experience factor in at that point? Like if one coach has had a lot of success in a small amount of time compared to another coach who's had
Good question. Good question.
Yeah, I mean, look, you definitely want to have coaches that have had success, but how are you measuring that? Are you measuring that in win?
Coaches that have had success, they're not on the market. I'll let you know that right now. Successful coaches are not on the market because they're coaching. I'll just let that be known for the most part.
Wins, or are you measuring it in, statistics, development of players? There's lots of different. There's lots of different things to look at when you're looking at all these head coaches. So we're looking at all of it.
If you were selling this job to a potential candidate, like what would you tell them if they asked why
They kinda
this
ask-
would be an attractive job? Or...
Yeah, I don't really think we have to do that.
Oh my God, bro. He's fucking arrogant, dumb son of a gun. Jesus Christ. Yes, you do. We're not a good franchise, dog. We're not. They're not walking into Pat Mahomes. Like I'm keep using him obviously because that's Pat Mahomes, the cream of the crop. But they're not walking into a great situation. Yes, you have to sell yourself to coaches. I know it's 32 NFL jobs. Everybody wants to be an NFL head coach, and you're more than likely not going to be one than you are. But you still have to sell your team, man. If you want your guy, you still have to sell him. Obviously, you're going to want the guy to want the job. But you still have to sell this sorry-ass product that's put on the field the last 4 or 5 years. Cut it out.
I guess a better question is, would you like?
Yeah, we're not
why do you-
recruiting, we're interviewing, and they're interviewing us, so.
You should be
It's a
recruiting.
matter of right fit. It's not, I don't think selling is the right,
And that's why Ben Johnson never walked through that damn door for us right there. This is the exact reason why we can't get a guy like Ben Johnson to walk through that door.
I don't think we need to do that.
Why we can't get Vrabel to walk through
We
that
can
door.
answer questions, certainly, and there's gonna be questions about how, each coach, each candidate is gonna have things that are important to them. And they're gonna wanna understand, those things from us. And the right thing to do is not try to sell. The right thing to do is kind of lay out what you are, what your vision. That's how we're gonna be successful.
Well,
Time for 2 or 3 more questions.
Cam was pretty outspoken about not liking that he had to play defensive tackle. What did you just make of his season? And pretty outspoken about.
Say it again.
Pretty.
Time for 2 or 3 more questions.
Cam.
Cam was pretty outspoken about not liking that he had to play defensive tackle. What did you
Cam, we don't care what you like, buddy. You ain't good enough to make the man. Sorry. Just gonna keep it real.
just make of his season and his role and.
Yeah, I think, look, that's a coaching,
Pass the buck.
that's a coaching item there, right?
It is,
Cam's played for us and been a fantastic player, a fantastic person. He just won that Bart Starr Award. That's a fantastic honor.
True.
I'm really proud of him.
True.
He's a good player. He's been a good player for such a long time.
Yeah, I don't know if he's a good player anymore. Cut it out.
I didn't see those comments, so but I can't really speak to those exact comments. But I know that he felt better about his role toward the end of the season than he did in the middle. And
Oh,
the beginning of the
buddy,
season.
I already know what they finna say. I already see what they saying. They got that's still an excuse to bring him back. Oh, at the end of the season under Rizzy, that made me think he's about to hire Rizzy at this point. Saying that, yeah, let me not look into that too much.
How do you go about identifying your candidate?
I don't care about that. No offense.
So we haven't relied.
Or Jeff.
Well, look, I'll talk to, let me rephrase that. We will talk to people outside the building who have experience with a particular candidate, right? Hey, what do you think about, how was he, kind of style does he have? Those types of questions with a lot of people outside the building. So we've had a lot of
Of energy left. A couple of things you said at this time last year were that y'all had let the standard slip and that y'all needed a jolt of energy and enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And it was your responsibility to lead
Yeah.
in both those efforts. How do you think you and the organization have done over the last year
Yeah.
in those fields?
I think there were some improvements. I think our coaches, I think our players took a lot of things, particularly the player leadership, took a lot of things to heart, and improved in that area. But we need to improve more.
Am I in a Twilight Zone?
Yeah.
How much did dead money hits factor into your decisions on whether to keep a player or let a player
Good
go?
question, whoever that is.
Um,
Sound like Nick.
I mean, there's some, I don't know that it affects ultimately the decision. It just affects, hey, how do we handle it? How do we, manage it? I don't think it doesn't determine that we're gonna keep or let someone go. It just determines how we manage the rest of it.
Good
Where
answer.
a number's so big though that it's just, we can't take $40 million, we can't take $30 million, like.
It hasn't been yet. But there's some big numbers occasionally, yeah, that you have to go through, hey, how do we handle this if we're gonna take on that particular number? But again, that's,
All right, it's almost coming to the end. It's not as bad as last year. It's still not great. Starting off not knowing what draft pick you got. I guess I'll let it finish
in that
first.
position, and there's gonna be a bunch more. You're either in it or you're gonna be in it at some point, or you're just never spending any money. But
How do you feel about kind of the resources that you have, like the number of draft picks, the cap?
Yeah. I'd always take more draft picks if we could get them. But look, I like where we're at,
Especially if you knew what picks we had.
and I like our history of drafting too. I think we've got a really good history of drafting. Again, when you have a new coaching staff, now you've got to recalibrate and adjust, not the evaluation process, but what you're looking at.
He ain't talking
they
about
want the
shit.
players to do, and
Can I ask maybe a philosophical question again? You know, sometimes.
hasn't this been all philosophical?
I know like in therapy, they say, you know, admitting a problem is the first step in fixing a problem.
Yeah.
Where we going with this?
Is, you know, is 5 and 12 and firing a coach, is that admitting a problem and saying we have to fix it?
Uh-oh.
That's admitting a problem.
All right, good
absolutely.
question, man. Whoever you are, great question.
But that isn't just the coach.
Oh,
that's-
hey, defending us,
we look at
Allen.
ourselves.
Okay,
You know, I gotta
okay.
Look at the way.
No, look
you know,
at
I'm
yourself.
operating, and
Thank
I gotta
God.
Look at the way that all of us in football operations are operating, all the way down to.
Sounds good.
Like I said, the injury issue. Right?
Oh my. There was a moment of silence for the injuries.
You know, all the things that contribute to us, we're doing something. We have to look at all of that area. We got to do better. And how can we do this?
You push back against the idea that the roster was getting too old. Do you still?
Glad we
you
asked
still
this
feel
question
that way,
again.
That you guys are in a good spot in terms of just the overall.
No, we are old as fuck.
It's a good question. I think that
We're old, bro.
I kind of look at the other end of it as, man, we've got a lot of young players that have done some good things. Look, the injuries are bad.
I'm out.
problem, right?
I'm out. We not talking about injuries. Hey man, thank y'all for tuning in, man, to my reaction to this nonsense. These injuries is craziness. Thank y'all for tuning in once again. It's always just a boot tragedy. I'm out.